Thank you very much and welcome to everyone to today's webinar on one of the most significant financial shifts of our time. We've called it, as you see from the title, the Great Wealth Transfer. So this is the second of 3 webinars that form our Constructing Change webinar series that help us prepare for the Building Bridges conference taking place in December in Geneva from the 9th to the 12th. You're all very welcome to join, and you can register on our website. Check out the program there. So, but back to the topic of today, very important. So what we are going to see over the coming decades is really the largest wealth transfer in history. And experts are estimating that approximately $84 trillion will pass from baby boomers mainly to the heirs by 2045. And that presents an enormous opportunity. In many ways, this new generation is taking on a responsibility to ensure that their wealth is used for the common good. And there are a few elements that make this transfer really unique. And it's changing the face of wealth holders and of investors. For instance, nearly 70% of wealth transfers involve women, either as decision makers or beneficiaries. Research shows that women often make longer-term impact-driven financial decisions. And this is not to offend anybody who's not a woman here on this call, but it's still an interesting finding. And according to BCG, women today control already about 32% of global wealth. And it's expected, obviously, to grow with that shift in the wealth transfer. And I think there's another important element that millennials, especially, are seeking to invest their wealth in ways that reflect their values. The studies show that nearly 7% of millennials are interested in aligning their investments with social and environmental goals. And that represents a shift in wealth management, but also in the way that society understands the purpose of capital for the good of our society. And I just want to share a little personal anecdote here. Before I joined Building Bridges, I co-founded an impact investing company. And we were working a lot with impact-focused startups across the globe, amongst others also in Latin America. So one day, quite a few years ago, I was visiting one of our portfolio companies together with a young wealth owner from the Caribbean. And she had dedicated already part of her private capital to investing in such impact-driven startups. So after that visit, she was really incredibly driven, but after the visit, she was so inspired and committed that she agreed to take a board seat on that company. So not just investing her wealth, but I think even as importantly, to make her connections, her experience valuable and contribute with that to the company. And that really gave it an incredible boost. I found that really impressive, that dedication. And it's also one of the reasons why this is such an important topic for me. And it really moves me deeply to see how that responsibility is being taken on by people who are enabled and empowered to take decisions on their own wealth. So I think today's conversation, and I'm really looking forward to that, will explore how that great wealth transfer can help reshape philanthropy, investment strategies, and long-term economic systems and the way our systems are being set up. Our leaders today our panelists today are leaders who have chosen to use their inherited wealth to really make a difference. They serve as examples of how this great wealth transfer can be powerful as a force for positive change. And it also demonstrates how they've taken on the responsibility to ensure that future generations and the planet we share benefits from this unprecedented transition that we are witnessing at the moment. So without further ado, thank you again for joining us. I hope today's conversation will inspire you and will encourage each of us and each of you to really think about the legacy, financial or otherwise, that we want to leave to future generations. And I do hope to see some of you at Building Bridges in December here in Geneva. So for now, I leave you in the very wise and capable hands of Dr. Falco Petzold. He's the founder and leader of the Center for Sustainable Finance and Private Wealth at the Department of Finance of the University of Zurich. Falco, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks for inviting us. You right away make use here of these fantastic emoticons. All right, so welcome everybody for this call, which I think has an important topic. next-gen wealth holders on overcoming barriers to drive impact, where's the action. So short background to who's here today. So I'm Falco, the founder of CSP, Center for Sustainable Finance and Private Wealth at the University of Zurich. Actually also really happy to have here co-founders with me, Toni Schwarz, Benjamin Firmenich. And we now also have entities in Singapore with 8 staff, North America, 4 staff. So it's a global platform. I did my PhD on what are the barriers for sustainable investing in private wealth management. I did this because I was working in a bank, and it was such a weird situation that I was responsible for setting up sustainable investing funds. We had cool funds on the platform, and all the private bankers would tell me, great stuff, Falco, but my clients don't care. My clients don't care about impact, not even the next gens. And it was so weird because whenever I would go to events with the high net worth clients of this bank where I was working, I would introduce myself as the sustainable investing analyst. A lot of high net worth individuals, in particular next gens, were very interested in sustainability. So what was going on here? Why were the private bankers pushing back so much? And there was no research about this, so I did my PhD on this topic. And the bottom line was that a lot of wealth holders are quite interested in impact, but the advisors are holding them back. And so as a result of that, we started a program back then at Harvard in 2015. It's called Impact Investing for the Next Generation. And we actually have 3 alumni or current participants from the program here. So that's a bit of the background of the call today. Few words about this program. So it's called Impact Investing for the Next Generation. I post the link here as well. And so we launched it in 2015 at Harvard. First cohort, actually Toni and Benjamin were participants in this first ever cohort of the program. And Katarina is a participant in the current ongoing 10th iteration of this program. The way this program works is there's 1 cohort per year. It's always about 25 participants. It's only open to wealth holders, in particular inheritors. And it has been a very important springboard for many wealth holders into the whole impact space. The way it works is it has a 4-day module 1 in Zurich this time around, and then a 3-day module 2 at MIT in April, and then the following cohort, the 11th one, has the other way around, starts at MIT and ends in Zurich. So that's a bit of the background of the group that we are here today. So I'm the founder of this program together with other co-founders, and Toni, Benjamin were participants in the first cohort of this program, and Katarina is in the current program. And the program is all about, if you're in this wealth situation, how can you really have impact? So we're deeply, deeply thinking about the topic of building bridges in general, and this core here in particular. How to have impact, what are the barriers, how to overcome that. So that's what this program is about, and the platform that I now run, Center for Sustainable Finance and Private Wealth, is really a spin-off from this course. So thanks to Toni, thanks to Benjamin, also other alumni, Andre Hoffmann, etc. We got to pool capital together, start the first entity at the University of Zurich. Now there are other entities in Singapore, North America, and also a foundation behind that. And again, our focus entirely is on this whole question about what are the barriers, what are the solutions for having impact with private wealth. The way we operate is this type of flywheel, where we run training programs for wealth holders. There we learn what are the key questions that wealth holders really have to have impact. We have an alumni community where we engage with each other, and we feed all these insights to our research engine, if you wish, where we do academic work on the key questions that come out from the wealth holder community, how to have impact, and we feed the findings back into the training engine. And what's really cool with you, Katarina, is you're actually even doing a PhD on a key question that comes out of the whole programming, which is on identity and wealth, and we'll talk about this later today. So let's go into the conversations we're having today. The way it's going to work is as follows. We basically have 3 short rounds where we go around, first with Katarina, then with Toni, then with Benjamin. And the first round is really, what's your personal impact journey? Who are you? How did you get into the space? Why bother? Then the second round, what barriers do you see and encounter? And in particular, of course, according to the title of this workshop today, as well as what are the barriers really for next-gen wealth holders to have more impact? What's holding you back? And then the third round, what solutions do you see? And then we have a discussion, including with the audience. All right, without further ado, Katarina, who the hell are you? Why do you care about impact? What's your journey?
Hello, I'm Katarina. Thank you very much for having me. First of all, I'm dialing in from Berlin because I will meet a new Impact Deep Tech Fund today and tomorrow. And I'm actually based in Frankfurt, where I was also born and raised. I did my master's in finance and started off my career in the mergers and acquisition sector. And like the last 5 years, I attached my value and my identity to my job, to M&A, to being in investment banking, and also to my salary. And then suddenly I inherited some money because my mom, she passed away 2.5 years ago. So the salary I was really attached to felt suddenly like a drop in the ocean, and I felt super lonely with it. I couldn't feel a purpose anymore in my life. So I started to think about, what can I do with my wealth? How can I be responsible with my wealth? And it was like undergoing a shift with my identity. And it was quite difficult to talk about it, because I think at a certain age, it's not normal to be an investor and to take care of your own money. So I felt super lonely. I had a difficult time to go through, but suddenly I met a network for women who inherited. And that was like an eye opener, because one of the women, she asked the other women, what did you do with your money? What was the first thing you kind of bought from it? And 80% said, I quit my job. And this was really a relief for me, that I can do the same, that I can take fully responsibility about my wealth. And this identity transformation was so present in my life, that I wanted to dig deeper. I wanted to learn from other people how they feel. And that's why I'm doing now my PhD when it comes to the topic wealth and identity. So this is super exciting for me to talk about this difficulties with other people. And I'm doing it on a qualitative basis. And I ended up, and whenever I do an interview, it feels like a free therapy for both of us. So it's a lot of fun at this stage. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Katharina. And it's such an interesting, of course, situation that you have with wearing these multiple hats, right? So you are actually a really accomplished professional, actually also in finance on one hand, and then on the other hand, now this whole inheritor impact investor hat on, and then there's the third hand even coming in, that with the research hat on, we're actually deeply exploring these whole identity questions. So thank you for joining us today, and really cool also to have you in the Next Gen program currently digging in. Thanks, Katharina. Tony, over to you. What is your impact journey? Why do you bother?
So yeah, my story is I'm half Greek, half German, born and raised in Munich, also lived a bit in Athens, and German family was in the pharmaceutical sector. We had a company that we sold in 2006, and from that sale, I inherited some funds. And yeah, so for me, I did my studies, and then after my master's, I did a master's in business. I decided I want to do something that's kind of closer to my heart. Everyone in my master's was kind of trying to land a job at Goldman Sachs and the big consultancies of the world. And I just didn't feel, didn't have any appeal whatsoever to me. And so I wanted to do something to help with the Greek crisis. As I said, I'm half Greek. So my mother is from Athens. So I moved to Athens, set up an NGO there called Vuli Watch. Vuli means parliament, so Parliament Watch. We were like a parliamentary watchdog organization that promotes transparency and accountability in politics, and was a very interesting timing, of course, because like the whole Greek crisis was really bubbling up. And during that time, I also did some philanthropy in this field. So I gave some money to activist groups, and really saw that you can have a really big impact with these small donations. And then set up a foundation called Guerrilla Foundation in Berlin, where basically, we support grassroots social movements and activists in Europe that are working on systems change. And the Guerrilla Foundation, of course, also still around, and we have now 11 people that are forming a funder circle, so funding the organization, but we don't decide where the money goes. We actually have the team and an activist council that decides. So about 11 activists and the team, they they run the show and we're giving the money. So we're trying to disconnect the money from the power. For me personally, also, I don't think this whole wealth transfer is only good. It's also highly problematic from a democratic perspective, because obviously we all don't pay enough inheritance taxes and other taxes, so on. So yeah, so I'm also active in a group in Germany called Tax Me Now. It's a group of wealthy people that are using their voices to kind of advocate for higher wealth taxes. And I got active in 2015 as an impact investor, started doing my first investments with the help also of due diligence advisors, and also boosted, of course, by the program of Falco that I took part in. And what else? I'm trying also to convince the German government to do a law for dormant assets. So bank accounts where the owner is missing in Germany after 30 years, the bank gets the money, which is not very good. So we want to set up a system which is similar to the one in the UK, where the money basically goes into impact investing after some years. And so that's a bit about me. And with the family office, we also started a fund called Blackpoint Next Gen Fund. Maybe I should say that as well.
Go ahead, and of course, feel free to copy the link here if you like. Yeah. I think it's really cool initiative, actually, also of you, Tony, and the family to actually use some of the family capital to build a fund that is trying to have as much impact as possible in public markets. It's tricky, right? Cool that you guys are doing that and opening up. Benjamin, over to you. What's your impact journey? Why bother for impact?
Yes, hi, I'm Benjamin from Switzerland. I was born in Geneva, raised here, then studied in Geneva political sciences, and then in the Netherlands environmental sciences. I became passionate about the environment and how to deal with humans and the environment together. And coming back to Switzerland after my studies, I was looking for a job, and there I met with my business partner now, Cedric, and it's been 14 years now that we started a fund, and we've been helped by my family at the very beginning. So this is the other part of me. I am born in a family business context, and my great-grandfather started this flavor and fragrance business, and we've been a very successful company, and the family kept together and supported each other, and I'm really grateful that when I started my impact fund and the family supported me, I could present it to everyone, and many cousins joined the adventure. And now after a few years, I took the course with Falco, also to meet other next gens, to hear about the other domains that is very vast, this impact investing topic. And I'm very glad that I could support Falco with the center, and because I think education is key. What Katarina is working on is, and what also Tony is doing, right, is what's in our mind, the identity, and activists these days. I believe that we need to be activists, right? We are in a state of emergency for many issues, and being, as Tony said, taxes, inequalities, biodiversity. So yes, continuing with that today. And I'm travel a lot to Latin America, because that's where that's what I've been doing for the 14 years, food and agri in Latin America. And I'm very glad that in 3 days I'm going there, and with my parents and brothers and sisters, I'm taking them to Colombia to visit a plantation, and also in Venezuela to visit a company, a family business who does cacao, and we'll visit the producers also. So very glad to be there and to talk about these barriers that I think are mostly in our minds, and then it's just give us the resources, give ourselves the time and resources to be activists.
Amen. Amen. All right, thank you. So perfect segue to talk about the barriers, and it's in our mind. So that leads perfectly over to you, Katarina, since you're working on such topics. So let's do the round on the barriers, and then we do the round on the solutions. Katarina, what are the key barriers that you see, but for yourself in your own situation, maybe also generally, that keep next-gen wealth holders from having more impact with their financial capital, other forms of capital that they have?
So from my perspective, we have to differentiate between people where the previous generation is still alive or the actual wealth holder is still alive. And then we have people who already inherited. And then this leads us to people who are overwhelmed by the family. So they have no freedom of choice. They might be overruled by other generations. They fear conflicts within the family. It's very hard to convince maybe older generations and going against established legacies. So they really have a lack of power. And then we have people who already inherited, and they first of all deal with grief for a couple of years, I would say. And they are quite overwhelmed by the responsibility, and maybe they are not familiar with all the assets. So it takes a lot of time to gain clarity and to implement functional structures for them. And with impact investing just coming at a later stage, so after they feel more confident with wealth, and they usually then want to diversify the portfolio more and start to think about their own preferences. And then one of the preference has to be impact investing, then comes impact investing. And with being an inheritant, you also deal with a lot of feelings of guilt, and with guilt comes avoidance. So some inheritors, they struggle with guilt, and they feel that they don't deserve the wealth because they didn't really earn it themselves. So they may just ignore it for a while. And what I see, many next-gen inheritors, they may not have a background in finance, and they identify more with different careers or with their personal passions. So they often feel very insecure about how to invest and whom to trust and how to educate themselves when it comes to financial matters. So this shift of being a person who has a career or who has a passion and having this identity, and then this identity has to transform to being an investor, is quite difficult because it takes a lot of time. It's not simple because you start to detach yourself from your actual group, so from your friends, maybe from co-workers and everything. And you cannot really speak openly about it or be transparent about it. And then we still have a quite negative narrative when it comes to being an investor. Most of the people, they associate an investor with actually white men, old white men. And this is not very sexy for the young generation. So we really have to push to have a new narrative when it comes to being an investor, and to make being an investor cool again, and then try to have the relation between being an investor and having impact, and put these two words together and make being an impact investor like a cool and a responsible thing, and that you can really change the world. So that's, I think, what we have as barriers.
Oh, thank you, Katarina, for sharing. It's a very rich set of observations that you have here, and I did note them down. We do the round, then we go back to you. I'll summarize briefly what I heard from you regarding the barriers, and then we go towards solutions. Thank you, Katarina. Tony, what are the barriers that you see?
So I would talk about mainly the German context that I'm more familiar with, and I think when we talk about like my generation, especially the millennials, I think on the one hand side, in Germany especially, people feel the strong need to prove themselves. We're a Leistungsgesellschaft, so performance society, and you have to show that you're able to achieve a top job and have a top salary, which means that you'll probably be super duper busy until the beginning of your 30s, sometimes beyond that. So I see now, I mean, I'm 36, with a lot of my generation that now they have proven themselves, and now they can feel, okay, now I can do something with my inherited funds. And yeah, in Germany, like using inherited wealth before the age of 30, I think it's just frowned upon. It's just, considered bad manners. And yeah, so I would say like this thinking about wealth is definitely an issue. Of course, the parent generation is a huge issue. They're holding on to power as much as possible. They don't care as much about climate change and generally about social ecological matters so much. They have their advisors and wealth managers that they work with, the family office staff. And yeah, so basically impact investing kind of represents kind of a risk, I guess, from an investment perspective, because you're going to things that and to topics that you have no experience with. So it's also normal to make mistakes. I think, you know, if you start off with a new topic, there's a learning process, there's a learning curve. You have to build your network as well. And so I think also that the next gens are very worried about making mistakes. And I think mistakes is absolutely part of the process. And when you're working for a big wealth manager or investment company, they always say you should like lose 50 or 100 million to become a good investor. In the best case, it's not the bank's money or so. So it's in family offices. Obviously, if you lose huge amounts of your family wealth, you're in deep trouble. So I think these are some things. And I think another issue is that the parent generation also, I mean, you can send them, and I'm generalizing here, but you can send them as much information about climate change, scientific studies, etc., or the pictures of Spain, like the floods or whatever. But for them, for me, they don't get the urgency. I feel like, you know, they're kind of saying, yeah, you're like trying to be like an apocalyptica, so like preaching the apocalypse or something. And then when the scenario comes, they're like, oh my God, yeah, you were actually right, bravo, you know. And so I feel that we're going to end up in this kind of situation. Of course, hoarding and luxury lifestyle is also an issue, that, you know, you have to protect the wealth, increase it, and then use the proceeds for luxury lifestyle, and maybe a fraction of that for philanthropy. And so these are just some things from my side.
Just some things, Tony. Just some things. That's a fantastic. Just a few points. Thank you. Very fantastic list. And again, I will summarize as much as I can later. But you know, I'm already gonna say a few words here before we all forget. You've got so many cool points, Katarina, Tony. So Tony, you also made the point that millennials want to prove themselves, so very busy up until their 30s or so. Only then feel they can actually get into the investment action. So the whole Leistungsgesellschaft thinking. Then the parent generation holding on to power and caring less about sustainability impact, not being receptive to any amount or depth of information about actually the poly crisis that we're facing. And yeah, so that less receptiveness of the parent generation is also holding next gens back. Thank you so much. And we'll discuss more about solutions in the next round. Thanks. Benjamin, what do you see from your perspective are key barriers?
Well, a lot has already been said. I think I agree with a lot of what my two colleagues here said, especially when it comes to inheriting money and taking risks, or feeling guilty to lose it, or having the time to do that. And that was something I was thinking of preparing this webinar. You know, I wanted to be a theater actor. That was my dream when I was a teenager. And then my parents told me, no, first you study, then we'll see. And then I ended studying something that created a passion for an activist. So, and I decided not to do theater because it was either I do it fully or I don't do it at all. And then years after, during my studies, I saw an amateur play, and it was actually really good. So then I thought, okay, it's also possible to do it on a dilettante, on an amateur basis. And I think it's the same for investing. You don't have to, as a next gen, to start a fund or be an entrepreneur, but you just have to be serious about it and be, as the colleague said, it's okay to lose money. I mean, you don't learn unless you lose money. So, but then I think a barrier is because you are so feeling guilty about losing money, then you tend to start small and to be very cautious. And then my belief is that you need to have the serious people, and in finance, salaries are high. So to have the good people, you need to put the right money, right? So either you get together in a group, or but I think you need to put the means and not do it. You can do it as an amateur, not professionally. You don't need to start a fund or to be an entrepreneur, but find the right advisors. And I think from what you said, Falco, since you started and since you did your studies, I think these days many advisors are there. There are so many impact funds, and that's what people learn in your. But these are more the solutions. But it's the barriers is thinking too small and not taking it really seriously. And then it's and another barrier is you don't have to make it all impact. Like me, I want to be a full-time theater actor, right? You can start with a fraction of the wealth, but then you do it seriously.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ben, for sharing. So fear of taking risk, losing the inheritance, that's a big barrier here. And also then not understanding that, yeah, you can overcome this risk, this fear of losing to some degree by starting small to learn, lean into this dilettante investing mechanism, and at the same time taking it serious and looking that you put the right infrastructure into place, advice, etc. Wonderful. Now let's go to solutions. Katharina, you had a fantastic perspective on what the barriers are. So if I understood correctly, you said that first of all, we need to redifferentiate between next gens where the prior gen is still alive, and as a result, a lot of those inheritors are simply held back by the lack of power, right? Basically a lot what Tony was talking about. Yeah. So having to deal with those barriers on one side, and on the other side, there would be then inheritors who have already inherited and who can act. But what would be barriers for them is, of course, first of all, those years of grief, feelings of being overwhelmed, needing to overcome structures that are in place or establish new structures. And really this whole grief and overwhelmed piece being together with an important barrier around this whole feeling of guilt, right? Guilt, ignoring the situation of wealth, not wanting to lean in at all. And also, of course, not having an investment background that a lot of inheritors don't have. And also self-made investors, for this reason, actually, don't have an investment background. They do identify with another career, and the whole narrative about what it means to be an investor is not a really sexy one. So it's not really enticing, really, then, as an inheritor that could actually work with his capital to do so, because, guilt is there, feeling insecure about how to move forward. So those are barriers that you outline, Katharina. Is that like a fair summary?
Yeah, for sure. I want to add a little bit to this, Falco. So I really think we need some more guided transition programs like the CSP or the network I found in Germany, where only inheritors are allowed, because this gives you like an ongoing inflow of information, and you meet a lot of nice people where you can talk openly. So we need actually open dialogues on wealth and maybe on legacy as well. We have to create safe spaces where people can share their experiences and also their feelings, when it comes to money shaming. So it might help them to transition their identity to becoming an investor. So this is one thing I would really suggest to people who are in this situation of being an inheritor or just wanting to gain more power when it comes to impact investing. We also need some more purpose-driven education, maybe, because I did my master's in finance, and actually there was no course implemented in the whole program with the topic impact investing. I learned how to calculate derivatives and everything, which I don't need anymore, but there was nothing on sustainability, social impact investing, and so on. So I really think we need some more purpose-driven education. And coming back to Benjamin, what I think is really important, that take it slowly. You don't have to do impact investing only. You can start with a topic you feel more related to. For example, 1.5 years ago, I started to do direct investments into startups. And I try to do very impactful startup investments, but sometimes I get super excited about some tech-related startups. So I also end up doing some tech-related investments. And they might not have a real impact when it comes to sustainability or social impact. So I think both is possible, and don't rush through it or don't feel pressured, I would say. Thank you.
Thanks, Katharina. So what I hear from you is basically 3 things you were saying. So the first one was that there's a need for what you would call transition programs. So those safe spaces where wealth holders can be in touch with one another in a protected space to talk about exactly the feelings piece, therefore also work on their whole identity of who am I now, and also to share experiences about how to then actually move forward, right? So basically the soft side and the hard side, if you will, the emotional and the technical pieces to share that in a protected space. Mm-hmm. There was one topic you mentioned that you find really important, and there are networks, there are communities like that. I think that's actually often underestimated, right? Often wealth holders with an interest in impact often underestimate how vibrant actually this ecosystem of high net worth impact investors is. There are those communities, there are those programs, but you don't really know from the outside, right? How did you even find out about this first network that you mentioned and our program?
Yeah, that's a very funny story, because I just Googled, I feel bad about being wealthy. Then I ended up with an article in the Tageszeitung from Berlin, and they suggested this network. Mm-hmm. So yeah, because it's very difficult to find people who are in the network, because no one talks openly about wealth. And so you don't really share your experiences when it comes to wealth. So I think you cannot, or you hardly find these networks by communicating to your friends or to coworkers, or I don't know. So because you're not running around telling people, oh, I inherited money and now I need some help. It's nothing you really do, right?
Right, yeah. And this network, what was it called?
It's called Pecunia.
Pecunia, exactly, yeah. Like the flower, right? Pecunia. It's for female wealth holders. And of course, there are others, Tonic, The Impact, such networks, Nexus. All right, and how did you hear about our program, actually?
When I started my PhD with Matthias Reitkirch, yeah, he's you're, I think, great friends.
Yeah, exactly.
He recommended the course.
Okay, wow. So you mentioned the transition programs. That's really important. Safe spaces, 1. 2, then to change the mainstream finance education, where you learn a lot of things and nothing about the real world, one could say, right? Yeah. Climate is not a topic, and so on. And to start slowly, so really a step-by-step approach to get the learning flywheel spinning as well, right? you make investments, you get the reporting from those investments, and you really get to learn about the field. Good, thank you, Katarina. Tony, what do you think? What are ways to overcome those barriers that you heard now, barriers that you mentioned regarding the Leistungsgesellschaft, regarding the parent situation, regarding hoarding, luxury lifestyle? So many topics you mentioned. What are solutions?
Yeah, I think I would agree, first of all, with what Katarina said. I would add advisors and family office staff is also important. So finding the right advisors that can help you, finding the right networks like Tonic, like the CSP, the Impact and others. And I think that deal flow has become insanely better. So like almost 10 years ago when I started, the impact investing sector was much smaller. So I would say it's a really great time to be an impact investor, because a lot of funds now have track records of over 3 years, 3 to 5 years, let's say, and a lot of the big financial players, especially in the private equity world, are starting impact products. So I would say the deal flow is pretty straightforward. If anybody has problems with deal flow, they can reach out to me. Can send you a gazillion funds. So I think it's really about moral ambition.
Wait, Tony, what is this? Moral ambition. That's
moral ambition. Yeah, moral ambition.
Yeah. Can you tell us what you mean with that? Because that's a really cool concept. What do you mean with moral ambition?
I kind of stole it from Rutger Bregman. He has this new project called the School of Moral Ambition. So I'm kind of stealing it from there. But yeah, having morals and acting upon them, I think that's what we need to do. And it's also, I think, for wealthy people, they should look at impact investing also as an investment in their own future and the well-being of themselves and their children. Because, if we live on a planet where, we have to only eat food from indoor farming, and the coral reefs have died and a lot of the species are going to be extinct, I don't think it's very, it's very, very favorable, So I think, we need to realize that we have to make a significant investment now. And and also I think beyond impact investing, I think if you're really passionate about having an impact, like in general, I think, maybe high impact philanthropy might be better for you. Or for example, if you want to change politics and you have connections, maybe that also makes sense. I don't know. So I think the theory of change and the engagement strategy is, I guess, for every person something different.
Well, thanks for sharing, Tony. And any pointers about this whole communication intergenerational piece?
I think the nice thing now is that the impact investing sector is really growing a lot, and there's a lot of events, great events. A lot of famous business families are involved or getting involved. So I think the de-risking is much more there. For myself, I used to go to Pimwimic Family Days with my family, which is in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, an event where they do one day for families only, and then the next day it's also for service providers. And that was really a great format to see, to show to my family that impact investing is something serious, and it's not about throwing the money out of the window. So I think going to these kind of events has also can be beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Especially go to events where different generations are present, right? So older generations can meet other older generations who've been maybe more down the path of impact. Cool, thanks, Tony. Benjamin, what do you think in regard to potential solutions? And I remember you had talked quite a bit about this whole inheritance situation actually leads to a lot of risk aversion, right? So inheritors being very fearful of losing anything and looking like a bad inheritor. At the same time, not realizing that you can get going as an amateur, right? To just get started, and at the same time building up the infrastructure that is now in place with advisors and so on. What is your advice in regard overcoming barriers?
Yes. Well, what you just said, I think it's changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's from the past, being ashamed of having lost your inheritance or made mistakes. I think in the future, how it's going on, as Tony said, how the world is evolving, the global crisis, it will be a shame if you had money and you didn't invest it in themes that you believe are important, or if you weren't an activist. I think in some way an activist, it can be in many ways, but I think this will change. And if I think of my children, in 20 years from now, I want to be there to, if they ask me what I did, I will say that I tried to do something. And another solution is, as Tony said, there are many funds, many families are doing it now, especially new money. What I see is that the fortunes that were created recently with tech or with empires that were created, they are much more, how to say, strategic and with lots of means to have an impact, systemic. And so it's, I think when you're a next gen, as Katarina will say, you surround yourself with other next gen to be able to share, to dialogue, but also to pass deals, because you find people that are sensitive to the same themes as you are. Because the problem is impact investing comes with a label, and if you are more into a theme, then be it I don't know, agriculture or med tech, we saw clean tech, etc. You find the funds that do that very well. So you learn with the funds, investing in them and talking with the teams, and then you find the other families or next gens that are in your themes, and you get collaboration, you pass some deals, you ask opinions. So yeah, I think it's changing the mindset. Being proud to say that we lost money trying, right? Or and that's what the beauty of a family business, right? Is you can take those risks. You can there's a capacity to suffer, right? Because you have a safety net. And so I was thinking of what Katarina was saying also, and many families are like that. When you are not in charge yet, then it's a great thing to do with your parents, or it's investing together, right? It's finding a common ground and trying, but very seriously, with advisors that today exist that do things very professionally, and yes, so it's just to change the mindset and be proud to having tried.
Good, yeah. And yeah, it's a good point that you bring up, that, of course, especially in this private wealth situation, the so-called capacity to suffer sounds a bit negative, right? But it's maybe more the risk-bearing, innovation advancing capacity is so high. Something to actually be more aware of. Benjamin, we also talked actually a bit about this whole topic of systemic investing in the recent future, which is more about how can we understand the whole systemic change that's happening in, for example, the energy system, the food system. And I've heard now increasingly that then families would say, talking about the systemic change and thinking through the whole system is actually an interesting way to avoid almost this whole impact investing label. To experience that too, and there's some networks that do this. I'm posting here the links actually. Transcap is a group that's working on the systemic topic. Twist. What's your perspective on this whole systemic investing narrative, Benjamin?
So having been 15 years almost in the field, it's when I heard about it, I discovered, I thought, okay, that's the new buzzword, right? After we had impact investing, then we had regenerative, then climate tech, and now systemic change. But actually, I think it's a very smart way to address those themes. So I don't really like the fact of changing the system. You don't change the system as an individual, as an activist. You choose your fights, right? And then choosing your fights, you target the themes that you are sensitive to, that you want to act for, but then you do it systematically. So you do it with your resources, you do it with your time, with your influence, with your donations, and your investment. So that's, I think, the very smart way of addressing those themes, and not put things into, how you say, clusters, or there's investing and there's the philanthropy and there's no. It all makes sense because it all goes in the same direction and with different tools. For some, you have to donate. For some, you invest. For some, you militate, and that's it.
Well, thanks for sharing. Now, any comments by Katarina, Tony towards Benjamin, or Ben towards Katarina, Tony? Otherwise, we have some Q&A questions lined up.
No comments from my side.
No comments there. All right, so Q&A is pretty cool. Questions coming in. Sarah Kropf asked, sometimes sustainable investments don't yield the expected results. How do next-gen investors handle setbacks or underperformance in impact-focused investments? Now, Benjamin, you answered with one solution, like own it, right? We tried. What other aspects? Tony, you mentioned that you are interested in this whole intergenerational debate also. How would you deal with that?
I mean, I think it makes sense to start with small amounts, like really small amounts, the smallest amounts possible. I mean, normally if you invest in a private equity fund, you have to invest 200 or 250,000, but sometimes there are some funds where it's even lower than that. So I would maybe try to go for like low investments, and and maybe just ramp it up over the years, and just have the money that you invest in the beginning be comfortable with the fact that it might not be returned. So yeah, it's kind of like a R&D investment, let's say, or a grant, if you want to be very I don't know, but it makes sense to start small. Yeah.
I would like to add something. So what was a really eye-opening moment for me when an alumni from CSP said that they have two buckets. One is for lifestyle and one is for impact investing, so that you can that you can sustain your lifestyle, which I think is also an important part for most of the people. And you shouldn't be ashamed of it, actually, because if you're used to have a certain lifestyle, it's okay to stick to this lifestyle. And then you can say, okay, but I don't need the other bucket, and I can do impact investing and have higher risks. And so this was a nice eye-opening moment for me, that it's okay to have a lifestyle bucket and to have an impact investing bucket.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. So, we've been running this Next Gen program now since 2015. And also for me, it was a big aha moment when I actually understood that it's oftentimes actually asking too much of any investor to say there's a pot of capital, and on this capital, I'm gonna try to achieve all the things that I know I want to achieve and things that I don't even know I have fears about, etc. Such as a oftentimes quite deep-sitting fear of I don't want to be poor, right? And to be poor again, if you're an entrepreneur and so on. And sometimes it's actually squaring too many things in one portfolio. So it can be really powerful to do exactly what you mentioned, Katarina. This exercise actually that's there as a whole group around, it's called the Enough Project. I'm posting the link here, which is a group of wealth holders who are actually digging quite a lot into very basic financial planning in the end, right? Really thinking about, well, how much is enough? How much capital do I actually need to sustain my lifestyle, to be able to, if I have a certain medical bill, I can still cover that, to maybe give some gifts to family. and doing this very basic financial calculation, because we all underestimate the power of compounding interest, right? But if you have 20 million or so today, due to compounding interest, this capital will be so much more by the end of your life, and it can be super helpful to do this exercise and really understand, okay, how much do I actually really need to cover my needs until the end of my life, and how much do I basically have extra? And for many wealth builders, that's actually quite a lot. Still, it's like surplus amount that then can be the initial portfolio for the world, right, Katarina? And that can make it much easier to actually deal with setbacks from the financial side of impact investments. Now, what we didn't discuss about, and I would be interested what you guys think about this, what about the impact side? Have you been disappointed? What do you do about if you're disappointed with the impact that you were expecting from an investment? Any takers?
Of course, you can be disappointed when it fails, and that relates to the question before. I mean, we always hear market returns, or you sacrifice return. No, it's at the end you take risks, right? And if you take risks, then you are ready to make sometime a loss, sometime have a great one, right? So the frustration is when you have this loss, because the impact is not there. You made an investment for a reason, and it's a complete disaster. So this is also, yeah, but it's part of the game, I think, and it's as you were saying, it's not considering everything in the same pot, because then you come back to these mind barriers that it's not yours, you shouldn't lose it, and etc. So what you said, Falco, about what do you really need and what can you risk, right? What can you risk? And then if you risk it and you lose it, well, it's okay, you tried. And then you will, for sure, if you take the risk and you learn and then you work with the right people, then you will recuperate what you lost 1,000 times, right? No, maybe not 1,000 times, but see what I mean? You will recuperate, but you have to go through these steps.
Awesome, thank you. To get to some of the questions here, the next one was, the description mentions that finding sustainable investment opportunities can be challenging. What's the best way for next-gen investors to access sustainable projects, especially in innovative sectors like clean tech and medtech? To just very briefly go around, Ben, you were speaking the last. Where would you go to find deals?
I think I have an answer on that one.
Yeah, you have, and you already mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, regarding impact investing, generally there's Impact Assets 50, which is some of the best impact investing funds in the world are named on this list. It's not exclusive list, obviously. And yeah, in terms of climate tech, there is really a lot going on. I have to say, I don't have I don't know a website where they're all on there. But yeah, I think if you just can get in touch with the impact investing networks or become a member and then ask them, they'll help you. Unfortunately, I need to leave because I have a very, very important call now. And it was a pleasure. And yeah.
Thank you. We're at the top of the hour also. Thank you, Tony. All right. Very briefly, what do Katarina, Benjamin, is it?
Yes. As an answer, just don't look for impact projects. If you want to look for medtech and clean tech, just go where the medtech and the clean tech conferences, and your internal compass will help you search for the ones that are impactful. So that's what I would say. I'm disagree with the Tony. Be careful of those impact only database or networks or so. There's so much out there, and it's you build your own impact and compass. Don't let other people decide what impact is.
Wonderful, thank you. And that's a very good call to arms and closing statement, if I may say, Benjamin. Thank you. Katharina, what's your final remarks for the context of this call?
Yeah, just wanted to add, when it comes to finding an impactful investment, I think you have to do a lot of networking. This helped me a lot, actually, because you cannot Google just, I want to invest into an impact fund. That's not going to work because there's too much greenwashing outside. So you should have a proper network, and you should come up with your own due diligence, try to implement your own due diligence process, and then just get started. And from investment to investment, you will learn a lot. That's my experience. So don't feel bad about not having the most impactful investment fund at first, and then just
wonderful. So get started and get the learning flywheel spinning, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, thank you. Well, with that, let's close. Briefly, this is the slide that our alumni usually say is one of the slides from the whole NextGen program that they find most important. And, it's simply about, this is a new field, impact investing, sustainable finance. It is getting mainstream, but still, it's something new. It's an innovation. You have to push against some established frameworks, and that simply is an up and down journey, right? First excitement, forming clarity, building portfolios, refining it. You still have to push through some resistances, but it is absolutely worth it. And luckily, the networks, the products, the advisors are increasingly so there. All right, let me close with that. And also maybe with a famous saying that is important for everybody in this call, starting from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed. We are on the right side of history here, pushing for impact. It's just a bit newish, and therefore there are usually barriers to overcome. So thank you very much, Katharina, Benjamin, Tony, for sharing their experiences. And thank you very much for the Building Bridges team for welcoming us. And I wish everybody a fantastic conference coming up in December. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.